This course is a companion to the book The Project Brain: Evolving Project Managers, available on Amazon. If you find today's session valuable, the book goes deeper on every framework you are about to learn, including the 3-tier document system, the janitor protocol, synthetic stakeholder simulations, and the full blueprint for an artificial intelligence-powered project management office you can run from your own desktop. You can find it by searching for The Project Brain by Self-Made PM on Amazon, or by visiting selfmadepm.com. Now let us begin the course. 1. Welcome to this 90-minute professional development session on managing remote teams. Remote work is no longer an experiment. It is how millions of project teams operate every day. Over the next hour and a half, we will shift your operating model from synchronous presence-based management to asynchronous output-based leadership, and we will build the specific communication systems and human practices that make distributed teams actually outperform co-located ones. This course is eligible for 1.5 self-reported professional development units, abbreviated PDU, with the Project Management Institute, abbreviated PMI, under the online or digital media category. It maps to the power skills edge of the PMI talent triangle. Let us begin. 2. By the end of this session, you will be able to do 3 things. First, you will be able to design a communication operating model that deliberately separates synchronous work from asynchronous work, freeing your team's deep work time. Second, you will be able to implement documentation and transparency defaults that replace the ambient information an office used to provide. Third, you will be able to build human connection on a distributed team with the same discipline you apply to delivery, because isolation is the single largest threat to a remote team's performance. 3. Here's how we will spend our 90 minutes together. Part 1 frames the remote team reality and why you cannot simply recreate the office on video calls. Part 2 covers the synchronous and asynchronous communication model, documentation defaults, and transparency as infrastructure. Part 3 addresses meetings, time zones, and the deliberate work of building human connection at a distance. At the end, I will walk you through exactly how to claim your PDUs. 4. Many project managers still manage distributed teams using the approaches they used in an office. They schedule back-to-back video calls, expect instant responses, and measure presence instead of output. The result is frustrated teams, meeting fatigue, and the persistent feeling that coordination is harder than it should be. Managing remote teams well requires a fundamentally different operating model. 5. The core challenge of remote work is not distance. It is the loss of ambient information. In an office, you overhear conversations, read body language, and absorb context passively. You learn about the vendor delay because you walked past the break room when the engineer was on the phone. You sense that the sponsor is frustrated because you saw the way she closed her laptop after the meeting. Remote teams lose all of that. Every piece of information must be deliberately shared, which means your communication systems have to do the heavy lifting that physical proximity used to handle. Once you accept this, the changes you need to make become obvious. You cannot recreate the office experience on video. You have to build something different and often better. 6. Presence-based management measures whether someone is at their desk. Output-based management measures whether the work is getting done. In an office, these measures correlate loosely because someone at their desk is usually working. In a remote environment, the correlation breaks. A team member staring at a screen may be exhausted and unproductive. A team member who steps away for 90 minutes may be doing their best thinking of the day. Stop measuring green dots on chat. Start measuring throughput of accepted work. This shift is uncomfortable for managers who have built their habits around visibility, but it is the shift remote teams require to actually perform. 7. The single most important decision in remote team management is how you split synchronous from asynchronous communication. Most remote teams default to too much synchronous communication because it feels familiar. The result is calendars packed with meetings that could have been messages and fragmented focus time for everyone. 8. Synchronous communication, meaning meetings, calls, and real-time chat, is valuable for three specific purposes: complex discussions where ideas build on each other and the conversation shape matters; relationship building, including one-on-ones, team connection, and trust development; and rapid decision-making when a decision is blocked and waiting another day would cost more than a 30-minute call. If a communication does not fit one of these three purposes, it probably should not be synchronous. 9. Asynchronous communication, meaning documents, threaded messages, recorded videos, and dashboards, is better for information sharing, status updates, decisions that benefit from reflection, and anything that needs to reach people across time zones. The goal is not to eliminate synchronous work. It is to deliberately shift routine updates and non-urgent questions to asynchronous channels, which protects focus time for everyone on the team. A team that reclaims 10 hours of meeting time per week per person and redirects even half of it into deep work produces dramatically more output, not less. 10. In remote teams, documentation is not a nice to have. It is infrastructure. Every decision, every process, and every piece of institutional knowledge needs a written home that anyone can find without asking. Create a single source of truth for project artifacts: the charter, the scope, the schedule, the risk register, the decision log, the meeting notes. Use consistent naming conventions and folder structures. Make documentation a team habit, not a chore assigned to one person. The best remote teams operate on a write-it-down principle, where the default action after any conversation is to document the outcome and share it in the appropriate channel. This practice eliminates the information gaps that plague distributed teams and makes onboarding new team members dramatically easier, because a new hire can read themselves up to speed rather than needing to interrupt 5 people. 11. In an office, information flows through hallway conversations and overheard discussions. Remote teams have to replace those informal channels with deliberate transparency. Default to public channels over direct messages. Share meeting notes broadly, not just with attendees. Post decisions and their rationale where the entire team can see them. When information is hoarded, even unintentionally, remote teams fracture into silos. Transparency builds trust, reduces duplicated effort, and ensures that no one is blocked because they did not know about a decision made in a call they were not invited to. The simple rule of, if it could be public, make it public, removes most information silos within a quarter of consistent practice. 12. Even with strong asynchronous defaults, you will still run meetings, coordinate across time zones, and invest in human relationships. Doing each of these deliberately is the difference between a remote team that thrives and one that slowly dissolves. 13. For every recurring meeting, ask 3 questions. Does this meeting have a clear purpose? Does it require real-time interaction? Would the outcome be worse if we handled this asynchronously? If a meeting is purely for status updates, replace it with a written asynchronous update. If a meeting exists because we have always had it, challenge its existence. Protect your team's focus time by establishing meeting-free blocks on the calendar, such as no meeting mornings or one full no meeting day per week. When meetings are necessary, make them count. Distribute an agenda in advance. Start and end on time. Document decisions and action items before the call ends. Teams that escape the meeting trap consistently outperform teams that equate busyness with productivity. 14. Time zone management is a logistics challenge with a human solution. Map your team's working hours and identify the overlap window, which is the hours when everyone is online simultaneously. Protect that window for conversations that genuinely require real-time participation. Brainstorming, conflict resolution, complex technical discussions. Everything else should be time zone agnostic, meaning the work can proceed without everyone being online at the same time. Rotate meeting times so the same people are not always accommodating inconvenient hours. Use tools that display local times for every team member. And never assume someone saw your message just because you sent it during your working hours. A message sent at 3 p.m. your time may land at 3 a.m. in their inbox, and expecting an immediate response is a fast way to teach your team that work does not respect their sleep. 15. The single most important ritual on a remote team is the weekly or bi-weekly one-on-one between each team member and their direct manager. These conversations should not be about task status, which should be handled in writing. They should be about workload, clarity of expectations, career development, and well-being. A good one-on-one is 30 minutes of asking open-ended questions and listening more than talking. Remote team members who have consistent one-on-ones stay engaged. Remote team members who do not disengage quietly, then loudly, then leave. 16. Remote work can be isolating, and isolation erodes trust, engagement, and collaboration. Building connection requires intentional effort. Create optional social channels where team members share interests, wins, and humor. Host virtual team events that are genuinely enjoyable, not forced fun. Pair team members across functions for informal coffee chats, sometimes called random coffee or donut matches. These small investments compound over time into the kind of team cohesion that makes projects succeed even when conditions are difficult. Relationships are the foundation of every high-performing team, and remote teams need to build them with the same discipline they apply to delivery. 17. Every remote team eventually has a team member who seems to be pulling away. Reduced participation, slower response times, less visible work. The wrong response is to escalate performance management. The right response is a private, empathetic conversation that asks open-ended questions about their workload, clarity of expectations, and any blockers they are facing. Disengagement is usually a symptom of unclear goals, feeling disconnected from the team, or the early stages of burnout. Addressing the root cause is both more humane and far more effective than managing the symptom. Most remote disengagement is reversible if caught early and addressed honestly. 18. You now understand that the challenge of remote teams is not distance, but the loss of ambient information, and that the fix is a deliberate communication operating model rather than a virtual office. You can separate synchronous and asynchronous communication by purpose, build documentation as infrastructure, and default to transparency in public channels. You can audit meetings ruthlessly, manage time zones humanely, and invest in one-on-ones and human connection with the same discipline you apply to delivery. Your next step is to audit your current meeting calendar this week and ask the 3 questions about each recurring meeting, then cancel or convert the ones that do not pass. 19. To claim your 1.5 professional development units, log into your PMI dashboard at the Continuing Certification Requirements System, which is abbreviated CCRS. Select Report Professional Development Units. Choose the category labeled Online or Digital Media. Enter the course title exactly as shown on your certificate, which is Manage Remote Teams as a Project Manager. Enter the date you completed the course. Enter the provider name as Self-Made PM. Enter the professional development unit value of 1.5 allocated to the Power Skills area of the talent triangle. Retain your certificate of completion in case of an audit. Self-Made PM is not a Project Management Institute authorized training partner, and professional development units on this platform are self-reported. Thank you for spending this time with me. I will see you in the next course. Thank you for completing this course. If the ideas in this session spark something for you, the next step is the book. The Project Brain, Evolving Project Managers, is available now on Amazon and goes far beyond what we could cover in this session. It contains the complete system for building, maintaining, and scaling an artificial intelligence-powered project management office, the full janitor protocol with templates, deeper stakeholder simulation patterns, and real-world case studies from practitioners who have saved 10 to 15 hours per week using these methods. You can find more free courses, tools, and articles at selfmadepm.com. Again, thank you for your time, and remember to log your professional development units. I will see you in the next course. 21.